Evan had never felt so nervous in his life. Sitting in his small, cluttered apartment on the orbiting colony of Aurora 9, he stared at the blinking notification on his holopad. "Your companion has arrived. Proceed to Cargo Bay 14 for delivery." He rubbed his eyes and laughed nervously. He had spent weeks choosing every detail for his companion, preferences, personality traits, even the subtle things like favorite colors. According to the advertisement, the service could provide exactly what a person wanted. A perfect alien partner, compatible in mind and heart. He had imagined someone graceful, intelligent, and maybe a little mysterious. Someone who could challenge him, make him laugh, and understand the quiet parts of his mind that most humans could not. He had not imagined a child. Still, curiosity and excitement pushed him forward. The elevator to Cargo Bay 14 hummed under his feet as he rehearsed greetings in his head. "Hello, nice to meet you. Are you comfortable?" Words felt silly compared to the reality of what he was about to see. The doors opened with a soft hiss and the bay was bathed in pale blue light. A small transport pod floated near the center, its surface sleek and cold. Evan's heart beat faster. He pressed the interface on the pod and a panel slid open. A soft hiss of air filled the space, and then the pod doors opened fully. Evan's breath caught. Standing there was an alien woman, slender and tall, with skin that shimmered like polished sapphire under the lights. Her eyes were large, luminous, and golden, scanning the bay with cautious intelligence. Her antennae twitched ever so slightly, sensing the new environment. She was beautiful, more than he had imagined, but she was not alone. In her arms, a small child with skin of soft lavender clutched her neck, eyes wide and curious. The child looked at Evan with intense intelligence, seeming to study him in a way that made his stomach twist. Evan froze. "This is not what I ordered." The alien woman stepped forward carefully, the child still in her arms. Her voice, melodic and calm, resonated directly in his mind, a form of telepathic speech that made him start slightly. "Hello, I am Zyra, this is Lumo," she said. Her words were clear, almost musical. "I am not alone, I am his guardian." She did not seem offended, but there was a quiet confidence in her posture, as if she had faced situations far stranger than a nervous human man in a space colony. Lumo peeked over her shoulder, blinking at Evan with a mix of fear and curiosity. "This is not a mistake," Zyra said simply. "I am available for companionship. Lumo comes with me. You may refuse us, but he is mine." Zyra inclined her head slightly, her antennae moving in a fluid, graceful motion. She was patient, but Evan could feel the quiet weight of her presence. She was not just an alien, she was someone who had survived challenges he could only guess at. Lumo squirmed slightly, pressing against her shoulder, then peeked at Evan again, his golden eyes startlingly perceptive. Evan exhaled. He knew he had to make a decision quickly. The colony's rules were strict. Shipments could not be returned without a long bureaucratic process, and he suspected the service would charge a huge fee if he sent them back. But more than that, looking at Zyra and Lumo, he felt something strange, a twinge of responsibility. Somehow, even though they were unexpected, they belonged here now in his life. "Okay," he said finally. "You can stay, but I need to understand how this works." He occasionally touched objects, tilting them, testing their weight like he already understood physics at some level beyond his years. Evan could not stop looking. How had this child survived so long? How had Zyra kept him safe? Back in his apartment, Evan offered them a seat, or at least tried. Zyra declined, instead setting Lumo gently on the floor. The child looked around, touching the surfaces carefully, testing the gravity and texture of objects. Then he turned to Evan, a small frown on his face. "You are human?" he asked in perfect English. Evan blinked. "Yes, how do you speak English?" The child was not ordinary, not by any measure, Zyra observed quietly. "He learns quickly, you must adjust expectations. You must survive your surprise." Evan realized quickly that living with them would be a challenge. Lumo sometimes got into trouble, spilling liquids, poking at delicate equipment, and asking endless questions about human customs. But he also had moments of quiet insight, pointing out solutions to problems Evan had wrestled with for days. Zyra, meanwhile, guided him subtly, teaching without condescending, helping him realize that sometimes humans could underestimate themselves. One evening, as the artificial sun of the colony set behind the glass dome of the apartment complex, Evan sat alone for a moment. He looked at Zyra and Lumo playing a small puzzle game on the floor. Lumo laughed, a bright, clear sound that echoed in the small space, and Evan felt something he had not felt in years, a sense of belonging. He had come expecting a companion. Instead, he had a family. The thought made him both nervous and exhilarated. Could he manage this life? Could he protect them? Could he fit into their world, a world so different from his own? Before he could dwell on it too long, Zyra stood and approached him. Her eyes, golden and intelligent, met his. "You worry," she said softly, almost like a statement rather than a question. "You must learn quickly. There is danger always, and the universe does not forgive weakness." But looking at her, he realized that the universe outside this colony was bigger, stranger, and more dangerous than he had ever imagined. And now, somehow, he was responsible for two lives beyond his own. He nodded slowly. I'll do my best. And perhaps in time you will teach." He thought about the surprise delivery, the strange twists of fate, and the long journey that had just begun. He realized that life, no matter how carefully planned, was full of surprises, some terrifying, some wonderful, and some unexpectedly perfect. As he drifted into sleep, he felt a strange sense of anticipation. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns. But for the first time in a long time, he did not feel small. He did not feel alone, because somehow, against all odds, he had been given a chance, not just at companionship, but at a connection that could change everything. And he knew, deep down, that nothing would ever be the same again. Life in Evan's apartment quickly became a whirlwind of surprises, far beyond anything he had imagined. Each day brought a new challenge, a new puzzle, and sometimes a little chaos. Lumo, the small lavender-skinned child, proved to be far more clever than Evan had expected. He watched the young alien manipulate objects with ease, opening cabinets, pressing buttons, and experimenting with the apartment's technology. Evan often found himself chasing after Lumo, muttering under his breath, "How did they program this kid so fast?" Yet she never treated Evan as incapable. Instead, she guided him subtly, teaching him the rhythms of caring for her and Lumo without saying outright that he was failing. One morning, Evan woke to find Lumo staring intently at the holopad screen. The child's small hands tapped rapidly, pulling up schematics and diagrams that Evan didn't understand. "What are you doing?" Evan asked, squinting at the tiny holographic display. "I am learning," Lumo replied matter-of-factly. "I must understand the systems. You may not see danger, but I do." "You must think ahead, Evan. You cannot rely on chance." Some equipment went missing, strange messages appeared in the colony network, and a few neighbors whispered about seeing suspicious figures near the apartments. At first, Evan tried to ignore it, chalking it up to colony life. But then, one evening, he caught a glimpse of someone moving outside through the observation window, a tall, shadowy figure slipping between the structures. He turned to Zyra, who was calmly arranging tools on the table. "Did you see that?" he asked, voice low. She looked up, golden eyes sharp. "I did. They are watching. They know we are here. You must be cautious. Danger is coming." He had not expected this, that the quiet life he had imagined would turn into something resembling a battlefield strategy lesson. Days passed, and the subtle threats became more obvious. A delivery drone malfunctioned near the apartment, an important colony computer suddenly locked itself down, and Evan received cryptic messages from unknown sources warning him to release Zyra and Lumo. Each incident made him more nervous. Despite the rising tension, Evan began to see just how capable Zyra was. She repaired damaged equipment in ways he could not understand, using tools and techniques that seemed almost magical. Lumo, small as he was, offered solutions to problems with an intelligence that surpassed many adults he knew. Together, they formed a strange, unlikely team, a human, an alien woman, and her precocious child, able to anticipate and counter threats in ways Evan had never imagined. One evening, the colony's artificial sun dipped behind the glass dome, casting long shadows across the apartment. Evan, Zyra, and Lumo were huddled around a small table, discussing how to secure the apartment against the mysterious watchers. "We need sensors," Evan said, sketching ideas in the air with his holopad. "Something that can detect movement, heat, anything unusual. You humans underestimate small systems." Working together, they began creating a makeshift defense system, combining human engineering with alien intuition. Evan marveled at how naturally the two of them worked together. It was during this time that Evan began to understand Zyra's world in ways he never had before. She did not speak of her past easily, but small hints emerged. She had survived conflict before. She had seen death, danger, and betrayal, and yet she remained calm, intelligent, and protective. Lumo was a survivor too, learning quickly, observing, and adapting. They were not helpless beings sent for companionship. They were survivors, warriors in their own right. Evan felt a mix of awe and fear. Could he, a human with no combat experience, truly match their abilities? And more importantly, could he protect them when the danger inevitably came? The first real test came sooner than he expected. One night, a series of low-frequency alarms blared through the apartment. Evan jolted awake, reaching for his toolkit. Lumo was already alert, moving to the window and scanning the darkened colony structures. Zyra stood, antennae twitching, and placed a hand on Evan's shoulder. "They are here," she said. Evan's heart pounded. He had no idea who they were or how many, but instinctively he followed Zyra's lead. She moved to a control panel and activated the makeshift security system they had built together. Red lights flashed, holographic sensors scanned the perimeter, and a quiet hum of protective energy filled the room. Outside, Evan could see the shadows moving, sleek and deliberate, like predators stalking their prey. He swallowed hard, remembering Zyra's calm confidence and Lumo's small but intelligent presence at his side. For the first time, he felt the weight of responsibility, not just for himself, but for them. The intruders tried to breach the apartment. Small drones attempted to jam their systems, and mechanical devices attempted to pry open doors. But Evan, guided by Zyra, countered each move. He redirected power, adjusted sensors, and even used a few makeshift traps they had built for practice. Lumo called out patterns and strategies, his small voice precise and commanding in a way that belied his size. The battle was not violent, but it was tense. Shadows moved, alarms blared, and Evan felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Together, they pushed the intruders back, forcing them to retreat into the darkness beyond the colony. Evan collapsed in his chair afterward, exhausted but alive. Zyra and Lumo stood beside him, calm and unshaken, almost as if this had been expected all along. "You did well," Zyra said softly. "You survived your first test." The human ingenuity he had always relied on, quick thinking, problem-solving, improvisation, was just as important as Zyra's alien skills or Lumo's precocious intelligence. Together, they were stronger. The small family, brought together by a surprising twist of fate, had survived its first real challenge. In the quiet moments afterward, Evan began to reflect. He had been nervous, unprepared, and more than a little overwhelmed when he first saw Zyra and Lumo. But now he saw their value, not just as companions, but as teachers. They taught him patience, strategy, and courage. They showed him that the universe was vast and dangerous, yes, but also filled with opportunity for growth and resilience. That night, Evan lay in bed, thinking about what the future might hold. The shadows outside had retreated, but he knew it was only a matter of time before more challenges came. He realized that life with Zyra and Lumo would never be simple or quiet. But for the first time in years, he felt truly alive. He smiled to himself. Somehow, this unexpected family, this surprise delivery, had brought adventure, responsibility, and meaning back into his life. And he knew deep down that no matter what came next, he would not face it alone. The galaxy was vast, strange, and often dangerous. But with Zyra and Lumo by his side, Evan felt ready. He had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the greatest challenges bring the most growth, and the most unexpected companions can become the most important teachers. As sleep finally claimed him, he heard Lumo whisper softly from the floor, "Tomorrow we will learn more." Universe does not wait. Evan chuckled quietly, realizing that this was only the beginning of a journey that would test him, teach him, and ultimately change him forever. The next morning, the apartment felt unusually tense. Evan rubbed his eyes, still exhausted from the previous night's ordeal. Outside the observation windows, the colony glimmered in the early light, but the shadows of unknown watchers lingered in his mind. He had learned a simple truth. The universe rarely let anyone rest, even on a quiet orbiting colony like Aurora 9. Zyra moved silently through the kitchen, preparing a breakfast of strange alien fruits and simple grains. Lumo sat at the table, his small hands tracing intricate patterns on the hollow tabletop, patterns Evan could barely follow. "We must prepare," Zyra said softly, her golden eyes sharp and alert. "The Watchers may return, they will not give up easily." "Do you think it's the same group as last night?" he asked, trying not to sound nervous. Zyra's antennae twitched. "Yes, and it is likely they are not alone. There may be others who know of my presence, of Lumo's abilities." "Always." The day passed with careful preparation. Evan worked alongside Zyra and Lumo, fortifying the apartment, rerouting energy conduits, and creating alarms and defensive protocols. He discovered that when human engineering combined with alien intuition, their makeshift defenses became surprisingly sophisticated. Lumo even suggested adjustments that Evan would never have thought of, positioning sensors in ways that could detect movement across multiple dimensions, a capability humans lacked. As evening fell, Evan's nerves frayed. The colony outside was quiet, but the sense of being watched was palpable. Zyra noticed his tension. She placed a hand on his shoulder. Fear is natural. But fear alone does not protect you. Use your mind, your skills. We are stronger together. Just after midnight, a faint vibration ran through the floor of the apartment. The sensors they had installed picked up unusual activity outside, a small fleet of stealth drones approaching from the far end of the colony. Evan's heart raced. They're coming. You must be ready. The first drone breached the outer perimeter. Evan watched through the observation window as it hovered silently, scanning for life signs. He swallowed and remembered Zyra's words. Strength comes from unity, not fear. He pressed a sequence on the control panel, activating the first defensive measure, a holographic net that wrapped around the drone, temporarily disabling it. Lumo called out the drone's weaknesses and positions, and together they neutralized the first wave without letting it reach the apartment's inner sanctum. But the intruders adapted quickly. More drones arrived, faster and larger than the first. Evan realized that these attackers were not amateurs. They were trained hunters, equipped with advanced technology. One drone, moving almost like a living creature, breached the outer wall, its sensors locking onto Lumo's small frame. "Move!" Zyra shouted, scooping Lumo into her arms. Evan followed, activating another trap that sent a blinding pulse of light across the drone, forcing it to retreat temporarily. The apartment shook as the remaining drones adjusted their attack. Evan's mind raced, calculating strategies and rerouting systems in real time. Every decision mattered. Hours passed in a blur of lights, alarms, and rapid calculations. Evan felt exhausted, but he refused to give in. He was not just fighting for himself. He was fighting for Zyra and Lumo, for the small family that had unexpectedly become his world. He had never imagined himself in this position, yet here he was, holding his own against highly trained alien intruders. During a brief pause in the assault, Evan noticed Zyra moving with unparalleled precision, almost like a general directing her troops. She used gestures and subtle signals, coordinating every move with Lumo, turning their apartment into an almost impenetrable fortress. Evan felt a surge of admiration and gratitude. He had doubted them when they arrived, worried about the child, worried about himself, and now he realized that together they were extraordinary. The final wave of drones arrived just before dawn. They were larger, more aggressive, and clearly intended to overwhelm. Evan's fingers flew across the control panel. Lumo called out positions and patterns, and Zyra moved fluidly, using both her physical agility and her advanced knowledge of alien technology to counter the threat. One drone broke through, moving toward the inner living space. Evan grabbed a portable energy rod, standing between the drone and Zyra and Lumo. His heart pounded, but he felt something new, courage. Not reckless bravery, but a clear understanding that he could act, that he could protect them. With careful timing, he struck a control panel, sending a pulse that short-circuited the drone and forced it to crash into the floor harmlessly. The remaining drones retreated, vanishing into the darkness beyond the colony's perimeter. Silence fell over the apartment, broken only by the soft hum of their makeshift defense systems. Evan sank into a chair, exhausted, covered in sweat and dust. Zyra placed a hand on his arm, her touch calm and grounding. "You survived," she said simply. "We survived together." "That is good." Humanity was not defined by physical strength or alien abilities. It was defined by the ability to adapt, to think, to survive. And when combined with courage, intelligence, and teamwork, even the most overwhelming threats could be faced. Over the next few days, Evan noticed subtle changes in the colony. Other residents began asking questions about the strange disturbances. Some whispered about unusual intruders, others speculated about the sudden failures in security systems. But Evan and his small family stayed vigilant, knowing that the Watchers were still out there, perhaps regrouping, perhaps planning. Evan spent more time learning from Zyra and Lumo. He studied alien engineering principles, defensive strategies, and survival tactics. Zyra taught him patience, observation, and the importance of planning ahead. Lumo, despite his young age, offered lessons in creative problem-solving and seeing patterns that humans often missed. Together, they trained, fortified, and prepared, creating a rhythm to their lives that balanced caution with hope. One evening, after another long day of preparation, Evan found himself staring out at the colony. He thought about the twists of fate that had brought Zyra and Lumo into his life. He had expected a simple companionship program, perhaps someone to share quiet moments with. Instead, he had received an alien woman and a child who challenged him, inspired him, and forced him to grow in ways he never imagined. He realized that danger, while frightening, was also a teacher. The attacks had revealed strengths he did not know he possessed. They had revealed the value of teamwork, the importance of courage, and the power of human ingenuity when paired with alien intelligence. Zyra approached him, her presence calm and commanding. "You have changed," she said. "You think faster, act quicker, and trust yourself more. You are ready for what is to come." "I can't lose you, not now." It was defined by trust, by courage, and by the willingness to face danger together. He had been surprised by Zyra and Lumo, but now he could not imagine life without them. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown threats and mysteries, but Evan knew one thing with certainty: he was no longer alone. He had allies, teachers, and a family who had shown him that even in the darkest shadows, humanity, clever, resilient, and adaptable, could shine brightly. And somewhere in the depths of space, the Watchers were regrouping. They would return, no doubt, but Evan, Zyra, and Lumo were ready. They would meet the next challenge not as individuals, but as a team, as a family, and as a force the universe would learn to respect. As Evan finally lay down to rest, exhausted but alert, he felt a quiet thrill. The danger was far from over, but for the first time he did not feel powerless. He had survived, learned, and grown. And with Zyra and Lumo by his side, he was certain that no challenge, no matter how great, could break them. The night outside was silent, but Evan's mind was alive with possibilities. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, and perhaps even new dangers, but he felt ready. For the first time, he truly understood what it meant to survive, to adapt, and to thrive. Humanity, he realized, was not just clever. It was unstoppable when it refused to give in. And this small, unexpected family, an alien woman, her child, and a human man, was about to prove it to the galaxy. The colony had barely returned to a fragile calm when Evan realized the Watchers were not finished. The previous attack had been a warning, a test of their defenses. He could feel it in his bones. The intruders would strike again, stronger and better prepared. He and Zyra spent hours analyzing the previous night's assault, reviewing every failure and every successful maneuver. Lumo hovered over the hollow table, pointing out weaknesses that Evan had overlooked, his small fingers tracing invisible lines across their security schematics. "We cannot just wait this time," Zyra said, her voice calm but firm. "We must take action. If we only defend, they will keep coming, each time stronger." Humans had always survived by thinking, by innovating, by turning disadvantages into advantages. Now, he would put that ingenuity to the ultimate test. The first step was to fortify the colony itself. Evan and Zyra worked together to integrate the apartment's security systems with nearby structural points, doors, hallways, and observation posts. They created holographic decoys that could mimic movement, sensors that could track multiple intruders at once, and energy pulses that could temporarily disable advanced drones. Every element was carefully designed, a combination of human resourcefulness and Zyra's alien technology. Lumo, small but perceptive, contributed in ways Evan could never have imagined. He suggested paths for intruders to follow, then ways to manipulate those paths into traps. He worked tirelessly, moving between panels and consoles with astonishing speed and focus, his small voice calling out adjustments like a seasoned tactician. By nightfall, the colony felt almost like a living organism, a defensive network designed not just to survive, but to fight back. Evan stood back, breathing heavily, marveling at the complexity they had created together. For the first time, he truly felt like part of something larger than himself, something unstoppable. The attack came just after midnight. This time, it was not a single drone or a small squad. A fleet of sleek black ships descended from the shadows of space, moving silently but with lethal precision. Lights swept across the colony's surface, scanning for movement. Evan's stomach tightened, but he steadied himself, remembering Zyra's words: fear alone would not save them. Action would. "Remember your roles," Zyra instructed. "Follow the plan, trust each other, adapt quickly." He activated the first line of holographic decoys, projecting multiple images of the apartment and surrounding corridors. Lumo called out the positions of the approaching ships and drones, calculating timing, angles, and weaknesses with uncanny precision. Zyra moved through the apartment like water, her hands flying over controls and interfaces, manipulating alien energy fields that Evan barely understood. The first wave of attackers hit the decoys, their sensors confused. Evan pressed another sequence on the control panel, activating energy pulses that disabled several drones at once. Lumo shouted corrections, adjusting the timing of the pulses to maximize effect. Evan followed, rerouting power, activating traps, and improvising as new threats emerged. Hours passed in a blur of motion, noise, and tension. Evan felt exhaustion settling into his muscles, but he pushed through. He was no longer just a man defending his home. He was part of a team, part of a small but formidable force that combined human ingenuity, alien skill, and raw courage. Each victory, no matter how small, fueled their confidence. Each failure taught them something new. At one point, a group of intruders breached the outer perimeter, moving quickly toward the inner sections of the colony. Evan grabbed a portable energy rod and stood ready, his hands steady despite the fear gnawing at him. Lumo directed him to an unexpected blind spot in the intruder's path. Evan activated a trap, sending a net of energy across the floor that entangled the intruders, leaving them immobilized. Zyra moved swiftly, neutralizing the threat with precise efficiency. "You are improving," Zyra said quietly as they regrouped. "You think faster, act quicker. You are learning the rhythm of danger." But now he saw that human adaptability, combined with Zyra's alien abilities and Lumo's strategic mind, could overcome even the most sophisticated threats. The intruders were relentless. They adapted to their traps, changed their attack patterns, and tested every line of defense Evan and his small family had prepared. But each time they were met with a clever counter. Evan rerouted power to barriers at the last second. Zyra anticipated moves before they happened, and Lumo called out angles and timings with a precision that seemed beyond his years. Together, they turned the tide, pushing the attackers back inch by inch. By the time the first light of the artificial sun touched the colony, the attackers had been forced to retreat. The black ship slipped silently into space, leaving behind a quiet that felt almost surreal after the chaos of the night. Evan sank into a chair, exhausted beyond measure, but with a deep sense of accomplishment. They had survived. They had won. Zyra placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch calm and grounding. "We have proven something tonight," she said. "We are not weak. We are not helpless. And we are stronger together than they could ever imagine." The colony had been shaken, but Evan noticed something remarkable. The other residents had begun to notice the clever defenses and quick responses. Whispers of admiration and curiosity spread, and some even approached Evan, asking for guidance on security and strategy. He realized that human ingenuity could not only protect them but inspire others. Evan also noticed subtle changes in himself. He moved with more confidence, thought more clearly under pressure, and trusted his instincts in ways he had never done before. He had grown, not just in skill but in courage and understanding. Zyra and Lumo had pushed him to discover strengths he did not know he possessed, and in turn, he had learned to rely on his own cleverness as much as theirs. One evening, after another long day of preparation, Evan found himself standing at the observation window, looking out at the vast expanse of space. The stars glittered like diamonds, but he knew that danger lurked in that beauty. Yet he felt no fear, only determination. He had faced threats before, adapted, and survived. And with Zyra and Lumo by his side, he knew he could face anything. Zyra joined him silently, her golden eyes reflecting the distant stars. "You have changed," she said softly. "You understand now that survival is not just about strength. It is about thinking, adapting, and working together. That is the true power of humans. I never thought I could be this capable." He knew the attackers might return, that other dangers might lie ahead, but he also knew something more important. They had the skills, the intelligence, and the unity to face whatever came next. For the first time since Zyra and Lumo had arrived, Evan felt a deep sense of confidence, not arrogance but a quiet certainty. They were ready. The colony was ready. And humanity, clever and adaptable, had proven itself once again. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and often dangerous. But Evan had learned a truth that would guide him in the days to come. Survival was not about fear or strength alone. It was about creativity, courage, and the bonds between those willing to stand together. As the artificial sun rose higher, Casting golden light across the colony, Evan, Zyra, and Lumo prepared for the next phase of their lives. They would continue to learn, to adapt, and to grow stronger. And when the Watchers returned, as they surely would be ready, not just to defend themselves, but to show the universe what humans, working alongside aliens, could truly accomplish. In that quiet moment, Evan understood something profound. Life had brought him an unexpected family, a challenge he had never sought, and a responsibility far beyond what he had imagined. Yet he did not feel burdened. He felt alive. He felt powerful. He felt unstoppable. And in the depths of space, where shadows still moved and watchers plotted, the small, clever family on Aurora 9 had already begun to prove that they could not be defeated. Not by technology, not by force, and certainly not by fear. Together, they had turned a simple apartment into a fortress, danger into strategy, and fear into courage. And the galaxy would soon learn that human ingenuity, when combined with alien skill and the heart of a family, was a force unlike any other. The quiet of the colony was deceptive. Evan stood at the observation window, scanning the outer perimeter for signs of the intruders. He had learned long ago that the galaxy was full of surprises, and he had no intention of waiting to be attacked again. This time he would not just defend, he would strike back. Zyra moved beside him, her posture calm and confident, as if she had already calculated every possible outcome. Lumo perched on the table, his golden eyes glowing faintly as he traced patterns on the hollow screen, predicting movements of any approaching ships. Together, they were no longer just a man, an alien woman, and a child. They were a team, a force of cleverness, courage, and unity that could rival the intruders themselves. "The Watchers will return," Zyra said quietly, her antennae twitching. "They will come expecting the same defenses. We must show them something new, something they cannot anticipate." He had spent days modifying the colony's security systems, integrating human engineering with Zyra's alien technology. The decoys were more sophisticated, the energy barriers stronger, and the traps cleverer than anything they had used before. Every detail had been meticulously planned, and for the first time, Evan felt a deep sense of confidence in their chances. Lumo's small voice broke the silence. "I have calculated their likely approach. They will divide into 3 groups. If we guide them, they will walk into our strategy." The first wave of intruders appeared in the distance, sleek black ships cutting through space. Evan activated the decoys, projecting multiple false apartments and holographic movements that danced across the colony. The intruders adjusted, but Lumo's predictions allowed Evan to counter every move. Zyra's hands flew over the control panels, manipulating energy fields to create barriers and misdirect their attackers. The first group of intruders approached the perimeter. They were confident, expecting the same defenses they had encountered before. Evan held his breath as he activated the first trap, a sudden shift in energy fields that immobilized their ships temporarily. Lumo called out the angles, timing the pulses so the intruders could not escape. Zyra guided Evan's actions, her calm voice steadying his hands. The second group moved in from a different angle. Evan rerouted power to another barrier, sending a pulse that forced their ships off course. He felt a surge of exhilaration. This was no longer just defense. It was strategy, adaptation, and teamwork. Human ingenuity combined with alien skills was turning the tide. Then came the final group, larger and more aggressive than the rest. They had clearly learned from previous encounters, and they moved with precision. Evan's heart pounded as he realized the challenge was greater than anything they had faced, but he did not hesitate. He remembered the lessons Zyra and Lumo had taught him. Adapt quickly, trust your instincts, and work as one. Using a combination of holographic decoys, energy traps, and predictive calculations from Lumo, they lured the final group into a corridor lined with energy nets and force barriers. The intruders had no way to escape. Evan activated the final trap, sending a coordinated pulse that disabled their engines and rendered their ships useless. The intruders struggled, but the combined human-alien defense was overwhelming. Zyra moved with precision, disabling key systems on the intruders' ships. Lumo's small hands flew over the hollow screen, redirecting energy and coordinating the attack. Evan directed the traps, improvising when unexpected movements occurred. Together, they executed a flawless counterattack. The intruders, realizing defeat was inevitable, attempted a retreat. But Evan was not finished. He activated a final energy pulse, cutting off their escape route and forcing them to surrender. The black ships drifted silently, powerless, as the colony's defenders watched calmly. Evan sank into a chair, exhausted but triumphant. Zyra placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch steadying and warm. "We have done it," she said simply. "They are defeated for now. Together we are unstoppable." Repairs were made, systems restored, and the residents slowly returned to normal life. But whispers spread throughout the colony about the clever defenses and the mysterious family who had held off highly skilled intruders. Evan noticed curious glances, questions about security systems, and even a few requests for advice on defensive strategies. He smiled, realizing that humans could inspire not just themselves, but others, through ingenuity and courage. Evan also noticed changes in himself. He moved with more confidence, thought more clearly under pressure, and trusted his instincts in ways he had never done before. The experiences had taught him patience, strategy, and resilience. He had learned to act decisively, to anticipate threats, and to combine his skills with those of Zyra and Lumo for maximum effect. Zyra, quiet as ever, observed him with satisfaction. "You have grown," she said one evening, her golden eyes reflecting the soft glow of the colony lights. "You understand now that strength is not measured only in power. It is measured in thought, in adaptation, and in courage. That is what matters." Weeks passed and life gradually returned to a rhythm. The colony remained alert, but the attacks had ceased. Evan, Zyra, and Lumo continued to strengthen their defenses and skills, knowing that the galaxy was vast and unpredictable. But now they were ready for anything. They had proven that human ingenuity, when combined with alien skill and intelligence, could overcome even the most formidable threats. Evan often found himself reflecting on the journey. He had been nervous, overwhelmed, and unsure when Zyra and Lumo first arrived. But now he understood something profound. Danger, while frightening, could teach resilience. Challenges, while exhausting, could inspire growth, and unexpected companionship could become the foundation of strength. One morning, a small delivery arrived at the apartment. Evan opened the package to find a holographic message from the companion service. "Congratulations on your successful integration. As a token of appreciation, we have included a small alien pet to assist with companionship logistics. We will learn together." But Evan knew that with Zyra and Lumo by his side, he was ready. They were a family forged in challenge, strengthened by cooperation, and united by trust. They had survived the attacks, defeated the intruders, and proven that intelligence, courage, and unity could overcome almost anything. As the sun rose over Aurora 9, casting golden light across the colony, Evan felt a thrill he had never known. Life was unpredictable, full of surprises and often dangerous. But it was also full of wonder, growth, and connection. And he knew, deep in his heart, that he would face every challenge ahead, not alone, but with his family by his side. Together they had turned fear into strategy, danger into opportunity, and uncertainty into triumph. And the galaxy would never forget the small, clever family who had shown that human ingenuity combined with alien skill could be unstoppable. Evan smiled at Zyra and Lumo. "We did it," he said softly. Zyra's golden eyes met his. "Yes. And this is only the beginning." But now he realized that the surprises, the challenges, and the unexpected bonds had made him stronger, braver, and more human than he had ever been. Together, they were ready for the future. Together, they were unstoppable. And in the depths of space, among the stars and shadows, the galaxy had already begun to take notice.